That's awesome. Next year's chapel theme will be unity and community. Yo. I like it. I like it. Well, I mentioned it, I think, in my last message that I think Jesus is particularly good news for women. So, ladies, I really commend that Brave Love time to you. Do everything you can to understand how good the Lord is and what He has for you and who He's making you. And I just love it. Anytime Westmont has a chance to do something in Santa Barbara, in Montecito, in our surrounding communities, we just need to do it because we are a part of this community. And when we do that, even if it's things like picking up trash, when we do that, we are wearing our mission and who we are on our sleeves. So do that kind of stuff. It's great. Okay. Thanks, Mom. Okay. Didn't know she had come. If you've been watching online, if you've been at chapel, or perhaps you've been watching ESPN Ocho, you've been watching our series on Psalm 23. And so let me just remind you of where we are. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. And what we've been saying is that first line, that's it. That's the knockout punch. That's David, drop the mic. The rest is commentary on this audacious claim. The Lord is my shepherd. We talked about who the Lord is. There's a personal Lord. He had names for this Lord. The God who provides, the God who will be with me, the God who rescues me, the God who heals me. The Lord is my shepherd. It's mine. He's in my boat. He's in my life. And here's what good shepherds do. They lead me. They guide me. They protect me. They fight for me. They set a table for me. All these things. So the Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. And last time we got together, we talked about that He makes me lie down in green pastures. And we talked about what it means for a sheep even to get to a spot where they will lay down. You got to be free from fear and free from friction with other sheep and free from pests and free from hunger. And to actually, for a sheep who only thinks, like my Labrador, about eating, to get to a place of satiation and lying down, you're in good care of a good shepherd. And he leads me beside quiet waters. And quiet waters there refers to, again, that the chase is off. There are no predators chasing me. I'm by quiet waters. I'm in a safe place. And this morning, as we continue in our focus week, happens to be when we hit this verse. And so that we're going to merge them together. He restores my soul. I want to talk about what that means. That God, our shepherd, would restore our soul. This is like our deepest part of ourself. It's our identity. And the Hebrew, we have to understand the Hebrew concept for soul, not the Western recent Christianity view of soul, which would be a little bit like what you saw some people dressed as ghosts on Halloween. Like the soul is just this invisible part of us that floats around and does stuff. No. The soul in the Hebrew mindset is nephesh. In the Hebrew, we're composed of multiple parts. The body, which is the flesh and bones, it's the vessel. The organs, some of you parents have sold some of your organs to put your child here. That's awesome. The organs are viewed as the seats of thought. Actually, that would be in the heart in the Hebrew mindset. Emotion, the kidneys. And intuition, the gut. So we're body, we're organs, and we're also breath. And that would be one's character. What makes a person who they are. And so the soul, you're like, well, where's the soul? No, the soul is the sum and the unity of all that. That's who you are. And so David is saying, not just, whoo, these quiet waters are awesome, getting my feet up, get a little foot rub from a fellow sheep, I'm resting my feet. No. He's restoring my everything. Every part of who I am. Everything. He restores my soul. Well, how does He do that? And this is where the Presence Week theme is really nice right now. I think that how He restores our soul is simply His presence. Simply Him being in our life is the most healing part or way to adjust every part of our life. His presence is the fulfillment of our deepest desires. Remember, Augustine said this, I shared with us last week, "O God, thou hast made us for thyself, and our souls," every part of us, "are restless searching until they find their rest in thee." Felicia's song set us up beautifully Monday, talking about our presence with ourself. And Christine Sutt on Wednesday, I thought, did a marvelous job talking about seeing the image of God in one another and talking about our presence with one another. And this morning, I just want to address this grand idea of our presence with God and maybe focusing on His presence with us, the presence of God. I want to talk about what it does to us, and I want to talk about how we receive it. What does God's presence accomplish in us, and how do we get it? All right, to get there, I want to look at one of my favorite odd, strange passages in the Gospels. It's one of the odd ones. It's one of the strange ones. That's why I like it, because I am odd and strange. And I think it will show us something about how God restores the soul. Okay, we talked recently about Jesus calming the storm. Can you imagine just after all that, like just the aftermath of, man, we just saw Him speak to nature and the whole thing settled down. And we're calling out to the other boats, like, did you see what this? He spoke it, you know. And they're just sort of cruising in now to shore. They've had quite a night. And I'm thinking that the disciples are like, hope today is a little bit more quiet, a little bit more mellow. Just sort of let's have breakfast somewhere. Maybe a breakfast burrito on the shore, right? Well, they pull into the shore, and I just want you to picture this scene out of Mark chapter 5. It says, they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gerasenes. The Gerasenes. It's on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. And when Jesus had stepped out of the boat, immediately there met him on the shore, immediately, a man with an unclean spirit from the tombs, from the graveyard. Okay, can you just picture this? You're getting out of the boat, let's get ready for a quiet day. And here comes, and then we're going to get the description of this guy, but let me just give it to you ahead of time. Super strong, living in a graveyard, crying and cutting, naked, and demon possessed. Okay, that's who this guy is. Immediately he ran out and he had an unclean spirit, and he lived among the tombs. What's your zip code? What's your 401? Yeah, I live at the graveyard. Awesome. Okay. No one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been bound with shackles and chains, but had wrenched the chains apart, and he broke the shackles to pieces. Are you kidding me? Like, I read The Horizon recently. We have a bodybuilder on our campus. I don't know. Let's chain him up, see if he can do it. I don't think he can. Like, how strong do you got to be to bust chains? And this is where it's already been alluded to a couple times. Demon possession. This is weird. Y'all, this is not normal strength. I had an episode like this when I was on a backpacking trip with Jamie. We call it affectionately the trip from hell. This was years ago. We took a trip, and about 12 high school students, 80% of them were coming off of drugs. The other 20% were still solidly in, and about 80% were on probation of some sort. It was just a wild backpacking trip. And we're in Colorado, and it's toward the end of the trip, and they call these kind of trips stress camping trips. It's for a reason. It's meant to break you. Well, it worked. So there's this one night, I can't remember this young man's name, but he had a bit of a temper, and we'd kind of seen some of that. Well, one night, he just loses his stuff. And it took 2 guides, another male leader, and myself to subdue this guy and hold him down. He weighed maybe 100 pounds. Now, I may not be much, but I was a high school wrestler, and I've got my best hold on him, and it's taking all 4 of us to hold this guy down. And I sense, I'm not going to tell you that I heard it, I'm just telling you, I sensed turn his face away, because I was face to face with him. And so I turned his face away. Fast forward 2 weeks later, we hear that guy gets in a fight with another student, and he bit him 37 times. And as we dealt more with this student, there were some other things of a dark spiritual nature going on. So we're talking that kind of strength, like not the logical kind of strength. This guy has serious, serious issues. He's super strong. He's living in a graveyard. He's crying and cutting. He's naked, and he's got demons. So it says, night and day, among the tombs and in the mountains, he was crying out and cutting himself with stones. Now, you think if a guy like that lived in the hills of Montecito, we would know. Right? We would know. Westmont would definitely know. Because it would be like a track team initiation thing, like messing with Sasquatch. Like you got to go out, you got to touch them, and you got to get out of there, you know? And then we'd have like announcements at chapel, and these wonderful, cute people would come up and say, we are going to go up to the mountains today, and we're going to share Jesus with him. So we would know. We would know if this happened, right? So this guy, he's like renowned. This is who he is, and this is who shows up on the shore. And it says that he falls down at Jesus' feet, and he's crying out to him, what do you have to do with me, Son of the Most High God? Jesus is not wearing his name tag that day. Like there's a power, authority, recognition going on. And Jesus immediately started to tell the guy, come out of him. Come out of him. And he wasn't talking to the guy. He's talking to the bad guys in the guy. Okay? Now it gets really wild. He continues the conversation and he says, what's your name? And the guy says, Timmy. No. He says, because Jesus is asking the bad guys, the demons in there, who are you? And the answer is legion. You know what that means? Like 6,000. Like lots. Plenty. Not just one. This guy's a hot mess. My name is Legion, for we are many. And he begged him earnestly, begged Jesus, not to send him out of the country. I don't know why. Like maybe demons need passports. I don't know. Didn't want to leave the country. Liked it. Had a nice chateau there. I don't know. Now a great herd of pigs was feeding on the hillside, and they begged him. The demons were begging Jesus, send us into the pigs. Let us enter them. And sometimes I just wish I could be in the moment and see how Jesus dealt with this. Because I think Jesus is like, really? Okay. This would be cool. I don't know how you do that. But he does it. Picks up 6,000 demons and just deposits them in pigs. Now, I grew up with chickens and ducks and dogs and cats, but this had to sound fantastic. And then the pigs immediately run off a cliff and drown like it's the Pigalange of 30 AD. You can read about it in your history books. What must that have looked like and sounded like? Just the spectacle of what's going on. And the disciples who have just seen him speak to all of nature now see him speak to power itself and evil, and it has to obey his command. And they're just watching this whole thing go on. So the pigs go, and I don't know, it would have been a great day for a huge like smoked barbecue after that, but it says the herdsmen fled and told it to the city and the country, and people came to see what it was that happened. And they came to see Jesus, and they saw the demon-possessed man, the formerly super strong, living in the graveyard, crying and cutting naked demon guy, dressed and in his right mind. Dressed is good. That's an improvement. Tends to happen when you meet Jesus. You're like, I'm going to put some clothes on. Sitting there clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. Isn't that an interesting response? Why were they afraid? Because they know some power exchange had gone on. They knew who this guy was. A fixture on the exterior of their community. They knew who he was. And now here he is sitting in his right mind, back to himself. And they were afraid. And Jesus had ruined their pig economy for a little bit, so they weren't too stoked about that. And so they began to beg Jesus to depart. Isn't that fascinating? Would that have been your response after seeing something like that, to beg Jesus to leave? But they begged Jesus to leave, and it's something I have found about Jesus. He does not demand to stay where he's not made welcome. And he was getting into the boat. The man, formerly super strong, living in the graveyard, crying and cutting, naked demon guy, came to him and begged Jesus if he could get in the boat and go with him. Now, if I'm Jesus, I'm like, sure, come on, get in. What's 13? One of these guys is going to bail anyways, you know? This would be great. Take his seat, you know? But it says he doesn't. And you go like, Jesus, really? Are you... Why? He says he did not permit him. Now here comes the restoring of the soul, the rest of him. He says, go home to your friends and tell them how much the Lord has done for you, how much he has had mercy on you. And he went away and he began to proclaim in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him. And everyone marveled. A couple things to pay attention to here. Jesus doesn't let him get in the boat and escape. It would have made such sense. Can you imagine the cruddy life, how he even got to that place that we see him in? But he doesn't. He restores his soul by restoring him to his community. Again, the horizontal force of the gospel includes what happens this way with one another. And it would have been really easy to pluck him out, and maybe the guy would have been a great evangelist somewhere else. But what happens is he restores him to his people, and he says, go tell everyone what the Lord's done to you. And just this little line, and he went throughout the Decapolis sharing what Jesus had done with him, and everyone marveled. You want to know something fun about that? So let's fast forward. Homeboy becomes an evangelist. 300 years later, the church is having a very important conversation about who Jesus is. And they're arguing between homoousios and homoousios. Is Jesus one substance with God the Father, or is he a creation of God? And so Emperor Constantine demands the theologian and philosophers get together to work this out at the Council of Nicaea in 325. You probably watched it on ESPN2. Homoousians won the debate, and they codified their beliefs in a set of statements known as the Nicene Creed, which, based on Scripture, states that Jesus is one in being with the Father. It's a major tenet of our faith, of who Jesus is. When you read the Scriptures, I don't know how you end up anywhere else, but here's what's fun. There was a bishop there from the Decapolis, and his name was Theophilus. And he was part of the guys voting, he's one substance. Jesus is the one who has authority over nature and evil and all things. He is one with God the Father. So somehow, homeboy evangelist, formerly naked crazy guy, his spiritual progeny is at the Council of Nicaea casting a very important vote. His presence changes everything. The presence of God, when Jesus showed up on that shoreline that day, it changed everything. When Jesus showed up in my life, it changed everything, and it is changing everything. Love that song. I think it's the elevation song. Chains fall, fears bow, here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed, hope found, here now. Jesus, you change everything. So the question is, how do we get God's presence? How do we get this? Turns out, he gives it to us. And all we have to do is receive it. We have to let him give us himself. He shows up, we let him in, he stays with us, and we grow to become more receptive, more available, more obedient to his presence. I love how John said at the end of his life, he's writing 1 John, and he says, so we have come to know and believe. I love that. It's like this active verb. We've come to know and believe that the love of God is for us. God is love, and whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. God remains. God's presence stays with us. And I just want to keep talking about this idea that the Lord is our shepherd. We lack nothing. To remember that as we encounter fear and anxiety more and more in our culture, it's not an even battle. It wasn't 50-50 at that moment. The pigs might win. The demons might win. No, when Jesus is there, it's not 50-50. Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, the one who created everything. He's Lord God. So when he speaks to the pigs, they didn't say, well, let us think about it. He had command over evil and power. And that's who's in you. So anxiety is not equal to the power of Jesus. Don't believe it is. That's a lie. Fear does not have to be a constant companion. Jesus can touch that too, because we can grow. So we have come to know and to believe that the love of God has for us and that he abides in us. If you invite him in as the shepherd, invite him in as the Lord, we have it. We don't have to strain to get it. We learn how simply to raise our antenna. It's like this. I need a haircut. Thank you. What am I going to do? Well, Jamie comes back today, and at some point tomorrow morning, because I'm doing a wedding tomorrow, I'm going to go and sit on a chair on my back deck, because she's been cutting my hair since she was my girlfriend at Westmont. Smartest investment I ever made. And I'm going to present myself in the chair, and she is going to act upon me. And I'm going to say thank you and tell her how much I appreciate it. This is what Paul tells us to. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to present your bodies, your whole selves, as a living sacrifice. This is imperative. You do this. Holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed. That's passive. That is God saying, present yourself for me to act upon you. And that's how we experience more and more of God's presence. It's always here. It's like if we could see Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or satellite signals, we'd all probably run out of this room like a bunch of demon-possessed pigs. Like, wow, it's everywhere. Put tinfoil on our head. I don't know. God's presence is always constant. It's here. But how do we raise the antenna up to become more aware of it and be changed by it? And that, I think, is simple as getting in the seat and saying, here I am. I'm available. So this week, this focus week, has been filled with all sorts of opportunities. From walks to watching movies to seminars to chapels to hikes. And one last piece that we want to offer you is something that we've set up around campus called Soul Stations. And we're actually going to keep these up until you leave for Christmas break. And around campus, there's 13 different soul stations. Brad, let's cue the music, because I want to tell you about soul stations. You may be tired. Your academia is weighing you down. That's all right. Get yourself to a soul station, people. Tune in. All right, that's enough, Brad. So around campus, there are 13 different soul stations set up. If you go to the prayer chapel, you can pick up one of these green maps. On the front side, you'll see the stars. On the back side, you'll see this. And when you go to the location, and I'll show you what those look like in a second. When you go to the location, there's a little plastic like real estate holder. And there's also a lantern that is sort of a symbolic, the light of God, the presence of God is in your midst. So look for one of these. Do not decorate your dorm room with this, people. This is a soul station. And the real estate thing, take out the little piece of paper in there, and there's an exercise for you to go through. And some of it, there's something for you to do and to reflect on. You can do this between now and when you leave for Christmas. It may take you 5 minutes at a station. You may spend an hour at one place. It's not a race. It's not a steeplechase. You don't have to go to all 13. No one is there stamping your deal. You can do it 24 hours a day. If you run out of copies, go back to that back of the map, Brad. If you run out of copies, download on your phone. No, go to the back, the next one. There you go. Download on your phone a QR code scanner and just take a picture of the back of your map, and the soul station will come up, and you can read that there if we run out of copies. But when you go there, let me just tell you where some of these are. Okay, so the prayer chapel is the main hub, and in the corner there you'll see a painting It's normally in my office. That's that soul station. So kind of a visio divina. You're going to reflect on that painting. There's maps there on the left, and then the soul station exercise itself. And then they're around campus. The next one this is the Kerr Student Center up on that launch pad, that little patio. We have securely strapped with twine a lantern. We hope no one dies. Next one. By the way, Holly Beers wrote that one. This one is at the Potter's Clay Memorial, and this is about lament. Boy, I commend this one to you. There's a way to faithfully grieve, and this one's going to help you figure out how to do that. Next one this is the back patio of the Martin Institute. So from the GLC, if you look up and see the back of the Martin Institute, on that back patio, there's a soul station there that Mariah and the SFCs have written. Next one. The GLC, actually in the back of the room, kind of where I am, in the corner of the Foundation Darling Room, we're going to hang that picture. It's probably already hung by now, the icon of Christ. And Lisa DeBoer has done that one. Next one. Okay, this is the Dean's School, the bench there that's been there for a long time. I believe the Apostle Paul was born on that bench. Michael Schausberger has put this soul station there. So that's, again, on the map. You'll see that one. Next one. This is Reynolds Lawn. There's a bench right there. There you go. I played softball there with my girlfriend. Next. Okay, this is the chicken coop. Did you know we have chickens at Westmont? They're delicious. Just kidding. Okay, so chicken pen by the garden. There's a table right there. Go and commune with the chickens. Next one. Okay, Thorington Field. At the top of the stands, along the fence that comes up against the baseball field, there's your soul station there. Coach Wolf did that one. Next one. Observatory. Up on the deck of the observatory. Eben, our worship director, did that one. Next one. Okay, this is the pond, the DTR pond. Yeah. We're going to DTR yourself with God there, okay? Next one. And then this is really neat. It's in the horizon this time, but you saw that Dr. Paul Willis has cut a trail all around campus. Henry Now and the dog and I love this trail. And at the rock is basically on the road that goes to faculty housing Las Barrancas. The baseball field's here, and the rock is right over here. And that's where that is. And Paul doesn't give you a map to sort of find the whole trail. It's sort of like, hope you find it, hope you come back alive. Okay, so let me just say this. There's never a lot of time to make ourselves available to God. But I want to encourage you to come in more and more awareness of God's enduring presence, His light, His availability, His love for you. And I just commend this to you. Between now, maybe even this afternoon, you'd go knock a couple out or one out and just take some time to sit in the seat and let God do His stuff in you. We're embodied people, so at each station there's something for you to do that will help you remember and experience the light of God, the presence of God, the goodness of God in your life. Don't waste any opportunity to come into awareness of God's abiding presence and His enduring love for you. It's constant. Amen.